Well, the Relationships Foundation has produced a document called A Relationship State of the Nation. It's a bit like a budget report on what relationships are like in the UK and how we can improve it. And joining me on the line is Peter Lynas from the Relationships Foundation to talk about it. Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Paul.
So let's start with well-being, first of all, because in your booklet, the Relationships Foundation are saying we need more sense of well-being in our society. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's a sense of quality of life, or thriving lives is one of the ways we've described it. We get very fixated by gross domestic product and economic factors and how much money we have in the economy. But that only takes us so far, and we said surely there's more to life than that. Surely it's important the kind of relationships that we have, and that's one of the key things that influences our well-being. Our friendships, our community relationships, our work relationships. And if you think about your lives, we spend a lot of our time at work. We spend a lot of our time interacting with neighbours, in social groups, playing sport. So a lot of it is relating with other people. And if those things are going well, we tend to feel much better about ourselves. And if we're struggling with relationships within a family or within a work context, then our lives tend to be a little bit more miserable. So relationships, we're saying, are very important to our well-being, our thriving lives as a whole.
And does that sense of importance and that sense of influence extend beyond some of the problems with material things that we are seeing at the moment? The fact that the recession has caused so many problems, that it has caused so many people to lose their jobs, to feel the financial pressure. Does relationship actually help you overcome the stresses that come from materialism falling away?
One of the sort of the upsides or downsides of the recession is, yes, we've had to turn away from the economics that we have tended to put our faith in, if you like, to date, and suddenly when things go wrong, we turn to those relationships that are important to us. We turn to family and to friends to support us, to help us out. Family can be a great source of looking after kids, alleviating work pressures, looking after grandparents, but also providing some finances, maybe a little bit of buffer, helping us get on the housing market, or just being there to support us and help us out. Extended family and broader community can really help. So one of the upsides, if you like, of the recession is that people have been forced to look elsewhere for their happiness and where they put their value, and relationships has come to the fore in that. And the politicians are actually catching on to that as well and realising that relationships are an important part of the dynamics for politics.
And I can see how that sense of importance of relationship, it works within a nuclear setting, as it were, that the close, intimate relationships of family and of close friends, you can see how they would have an impact on you. But you actually go further, and you're saying that the nation as a whole will be affected, can even be financially affected by good, strong relationships between its constituent members.
Absolutely. I mean, intergenerational relationships are very important, the sense of how the older generation view the younger, and some of them being a little bit miffed at these masters of the universe who they think destroyed their pension funds. And at the same time, young people are saying, well, hold on, these old people all got their houses, they've got on the housing ladder, and there's a certain amount of resentment that they've got all the money and they've got all the assets in society, it looks like. And they seem to be dictating some of the terms of the election because grey power rules, because they go out to vote. And so we're looking between the generations and saying there's a sandwich generation in the middle who have responsibilities for their parents, their elderly parents, but also for their kids. There's different ethnic groups and cultural groups within Britain, and the relationships between those groups are very important too. So those kind of larger levels, they can have really significant impacts.
And I suppose if we can't actually address the issues of relationship between those groups, we end up with a divided society.
Absolutely, and that's a real problem. And I think people are, while they're interested in what the budget has to say and some of the economic things, they're also interested in, are more people living alone? Are people spending more time with their children or with their grandparents? Are people volunteering more? Are they more involved in their community? And so they want to see those kind of measures put out there as well, so then they can assess, well, actually what's important to me as an individual is not whether somebody's spending 90 billion or 100 billion pounds on the NHS. I can't comprehend how much money that is and what that looks like. What I want to know is, will I get to see my GP in a reasonable time? Is it going to be the same one that I see most times? Can I build any sort of relationship with him?
Yes.
You know, I've got a new daughter. I want to go and see the same GP each time with my daughter. That's my preference. I don't really care if they're spending 100 or 120 billion. I don't understand what that really means.
Yes. You make the point, though, and you make the point in your booklet, that relationship breakdown is costly to society, not only in terms of the way that people think about each other or the segments of society, as we were saying earlier, but also in terms of simple finance. Things like family breakdown, it is costly. If relationships are maintained, it is beneficial.
Yes, and unfortunately we've had to put that into economics in a sense, put some numbers on that to get people's attention, to quantify it for politicians and saying, look, unfortunately, when a relationship breaks down, society and often government and taxpayers step in to pay extra benefits, and unfortunately crime and housing and education costs increase as a consequence of relationship breakdown, and the statistics and the evidence for that is clear. And we've simply said, you realise that's £40 billion a year, or £1,300 per taxpayer, is being spent when they go wrong. And the reason we've said that, Paul, to be clear, is to say, by investing a small amount of money up front on better relationships education, better pre-marriage courses, better courses for anybody entering a relationship, we might be able to save some of that money on the downside. People simply don't have models of good, stable couple relationships. People aren't too sure what to do when they get into a fight. They haven't been, had a chance to talk a little bit about money, if they're going to have kids. Some of those basic questions, and you need a forum before you enter a relationship to say, let's talk about some of these things so we have more chance of that relationship succeeding.
But is it right to expect the government to provide that sort of forum? I mean, policies don't make relationships. Individuals make relationships, don't they?
Absolutely, and what we would like to see on our ideal is to see the third sector, so churches and community groups, actually providing the relationships education, so people go to those that they trust and people that they already know or have a relationship with potentially. But the government is supporting that, it's signposting it, it's directing people to it, and perhaps even offering some funding and incentives, and certainly helping those groups to do that, because it's in their interest. They pick up the tab when it goes wrong. So it'd be worth their while investing a little bit of money and time and effort up front to stop things going wrong. But we would like the churches and the community groups on the ground to actually offer the courses.
Yes.
And offer the help.
When it comes to it, we're heading towards an election, and fixing broken Britain is going to be pretty high up the priority list of most campaigning politicians. How can we know that they're taking it seriously and not just paying lip service to this as an issue?
Well, it's admittedly quite difficult, and we need to be asking questions of those who come to us on the doors, and we then as an organisation on a more national scale are asking those kind of questions of politicians and saying, will you commit to something like a relationship state of the nation, where we bring together some of these figures? Mr. Sarkozy in France has set up a wellbeing commission, and they've said, look, we want to look much more at the quality of life and make that a key aspect of something we do every year as a nation in France, and we're saying let's do something similar in Britain. And we're trying to get the politicians to sign up to that sort of agenda. But we need to ask those kind of questions. How interested are you in the family, one of those key relationships? How interested are you in what we're doing at a community level? And ask our local politicians, invite them to your church to do a hustings, get involved in the process. One of the big problems is apathy, and we've got to be involved in voting. We've got to be involved in asking tough questions of our politicians. We'll try and do it nationally as an organisation, and many others are doing that too. But people engaging locally is really helpful as well. You're
preaching to the choir here, Peter. You really are on that one, I tell you. The information that you've done, I mean, the Wellbeing series that we're highlighting here, a relationship state of the nation, that booklet that we're talking about now, the call to government to take this seriously, is actually part of a series. If people want to get hold of those booklets for themselves and find out more about this, and also find out how it can be measured, which I think is an interesting question as well, how can they do that?
Well, the Relationships Foundation website, so www.relationshipsfoundation.org, has links to all our material is freely available to download on the website, and you can obviously email into us if you want some hard copies of that. And our sister organisation has a book called Vote Wise through the Jubilee Centre, which again is helping people to really engage with the election issue. But come to the website and you'll get lots of information about how we're engaging with the political process.